A man pays a lot of money for a dead body, then rushes to the hospital to save it, and tells the doctor that if he can save his brother's life, he was willing to pay whatever it cost. After some examination, the doctor found that the man was already dead. But Kevin, the director, said as long as the family still had money in their pockets, the patient was still alive. Then the doctor came out and told the family, the patient's condition is very critical. We need to buy back the drugs on the list. But the hospital didn't have any of them. He needed to go to the pharmacy across the street from the hospital to buy them. Bar went to the pharmacy and found that a small bag of medicine cost 20,000 rupees. When he handed the medicine to the nurse complained that he was so slow. Don't you know how urgent this situation is? But when she returned to the ward, she handed the medicine to another nurse. She sent it back to the pharmacy, reminding the staff to calculate the commission. Not long after, Kevin came over with an anxious face and told him the patient's condition was getting worse and worse, and now he had a cerebral hemorrhage and needed a specialist to come and treat him, but the cost of the operation would be 100,000 rupees. Bar said he was willing to pay whatever it cost, as long as he could save him. After he finished paying the fee at the counter, a group of experts also quickly came over. The specialist saw that the patient had started to decompose. He blamed the doctor for the accident that would happen sooner or later. But when he heard Kevin say that the price was very high this time, the specialist was still happy to go along with their show. So a group of doctors and specialists were gesturing in and out of the room. The nurses were also running around, looking very busy. In fact, inside the room, they were chatting and having a good time. 6 hours had passed. The family's wallet was almost empty. At that moment, the doctor came out of the room and said to Bar with regret, "I'm really sorry. The patient can't be saved. If only he had been sent here earlier." Bar heard, "You claim to be able to save even dead people." The doctor was puzzled. How can a dead person be saved? Bar took out a death certificate from another hospital from his pocket. He said the patient was already dead. "So what have you been up to for the past 6 hours? Kevin couldn't pretend anymore. He immediately grabbed the death certificate and stuffed it into his mouth. Bar laughed contemptuously and then pulled out another one. "He has more than 100 copies of this certificate. You can eat as much as you want." Kevin was dumbfounded. Bar told them to return his medical bills and pay an additional 300 million rupees in compensation. Otherwise, he would expose them. Kevin had no choice but to agree to his terms. That only took the medical bills he paid. He gave all the 300 million rupees to the family of the deceased. But he wasn't going to let them off the hook. He made the inside story of the hospital public. Angry patients' families soon surrounded the hospital. The young director took out his gun, then tried to threaten them. But the families couldn't hold back their anger and swarmed on them. In the panic, the gun went off and the director died. At that moment, the dean's father, George, received the news of his son's death and flew back from abroad in a hurry. He threatened to avenge his son's death, but after reviewing the security camera footage of the scene, he was shocked. Did not he kill this man himself 5 years ago? At this time in the hospital, the man had just finished paying the high surgery fee. The financial officers at the front desk told him, "Your wife passed away last night." He can now claim the body with the slip. The man is confused. He was at the door of the ward last night. Why didn't anyone inform him? And the treasurer said with an impatient face, "I told you yesterday. Will you still come to settle the bill today? This is a dirty hospital." Yet this is only a small part of the truth that has been revealed. The hospital will rip you off for all your money if you dare to step through the door. Even if it's a small scrape, the doctor will bill you for a bunch of tests. Bar saw firsthand the darkness of this hospital. He directly planned the murder of the director. But that's what led George, the director's father, to find him. It turns out George is a shady real estate developer. To make huge profits, he colluded with Indian officials to build substandard projects. But before long, 5 buildings collapsed. Hundreds of innocent owners were killed, including Bar's wife and children. Later, he investigated and found that George had done everything. So he gathered all the evidence and found George to demand an explanation. But George was so arrogant, he not only did not apologize, but also humiliated Bar. He told Bar to call the government officials to see what they would do to him. Bar took out his cell phone and called the police chief and the city minister respectively. As soon as they heard it was about George, they directly hung up the phone. This also made George more arrogant. Seeing that justice would not be served, Bar decided to solve the problem in his own way. He closed the door and blocked it with a stool and kicked George out. He then pushed him against the edge of the window, and George begged for mercy. He said he still had his family. So he let him go. But what he didn't expect was, George picked up the fire axe on the ground and slashed him in the neck. Bar immediately fell to the ground. They thought Bar was dead, so they sent their men to dump his body in the field. Luckily, Bar was found by a group of students who passed by and rescued him. After this incident, Bell finally understood the Indian official system was completely corrupt, so he gathered a group of reactionary forces, oppressed by the government, and formed the League of the Righteous. They specialize in punishing corrupt and bribe-taking government officials. On this day, they kidnapped the most corrupt tax collector. They hanged him in the middle of the square and told the media every week a bribe-taking official would disappear. Bar became the most wanted man by the police. But in the hearts of the people, he was the embodiment of justice. For a while, all corrupt officials were terrified. They are afraid that the next target will be themselves. They have gone to the police station to surrender. In this way, George, who relied on bribing officials to make huge profits, began to see his business plummet. In order to regain his business, he kidnapped 10 honest officials and threatened them with bribery. If they didn't agree, he would simply kick them out of the building. Others saw the situation have decided to vote, and his move enraged Bar completely. In order to prevent more tragedies, he decided to take care of George first. A few days later, George's birthday arrived. To show off, he made sure all the guests wore his mask. This also gave Bar a better chance to make his move. He took the opportunity to create chaos to bring George to a villa. He used the same method he used 5 years ago to get him to call an official for help, and gave him 3 chances to do so. But as soon as they heard Bar's name, they hung up the phone instantly. George was angry and wanted to fight, but he was no match for Bar. Soon, George was beaten from inside the house to outside. Bar then lifted him up high and threw him to the ground. Soon George fell into the pool and drowned. After all this, Bar went to the police station and turned himself in. He was also sent to jail. The story was soon reported by the media. People who knew about it marched with signs. They stopped the prison bus and wanted the police to release Bar. Things were getting out of hand. The director asked Bar for help to solve the problem. Bar stepped on the chief's hand to the roof of the car. Looking at the endless crowd, he told the people that he was doing the right thing, but he was choosing the wrong way. When justice is not served, someone has to stand up for it. If there is still corruption in the future, I also hope that all of you can turn into Bar, become the nightmare of these people. At the end of the movie, Bar walked gracefully to the gallows, although he died, but it ignited the hope of the people. That's the end of the story for today. If you like this video, please click on subscribe. More videos are on my channel. Thanks for watching.